Hello, welcome. I'm Kurt Elster. Anybody, we got any folks here who listen to the unofficial Shopify podcast? Anybody? Yes. I'm glad we got a few because we are. I checked it today. I check it about every 20 minutes. We are at 976,000 downloads. I just looked at it this afternoon. I was showing Beav from Tactical Baby Gear. He just started a podcast. Month 1, we did 148 downloads. Month 2 was like 300 downloads. And just through virtue of showing up every Tuesday morning at the same time, publishing it, relentlessly without missing a week, suddenly at 4 years now, we're almost at 1 million downloads. I can't believe it. So the one of the core values that has powered my business as a Shopify expert, as the host of this small podcast, has been abundance mentality and community engagement, community participation. Because when I started 5 years ago, we started working on Shopify, and then 4 years ago, I said, man, why are we doing anything other than Shopify? This thing it's just the easiest to work on. Part of what made it so easy was the community around the platform. There was just so many people willingly working in public, documenting what they were doing and sharing what they were working on. Merchants and advanced marketers and developers and designers. And in doing that, that made everybody's life easier. A rising tide lifts all ships, right? So that has been, early on, that became my inspiration. And I'm happy to be taking that further, taking that into the real world with all of you with these meetups. And this is our second or third, depending on how you count it. First one we did in Lord Taylor last October. And I promise this venue's better. If you missed that one, you didn't miss anything. And then we did one in January here, which got canceled due to an unexpected second polar vortex. Chicago, we got to do better with this weather. It's rough. And now, so I had to pay for that one. We'll call it the second one. And now we've got this third event. We're going to try to do them every quarter going forward. And I got to thank Westfield for hosting us. They're really, really accommodating. When I pitched them on this idea, I said, hey, I'd love to do a meetup at the mall for Shopify merchants, partners, advanced marketers. And they said, you know what? We love the idea because they recently had someone from Shopify pitch them on the importance of pop-up stores, which I thought was interesting. So they said, no, we want to bring dynamic retailers into the mall. We want to bring tech entrepreneurs into the professional building. Because right now it's just me up there, Paul, my business partner, and about 400 dentists. Just all dentists up there. So I've really clean teeth as a result. So aside from, I got to thank Westfield for making this possible, for letting us use these spaces. I really appreciate it. This was our favorite diner. It closed in October, so I'm thrilled we get to send it off one last time here with all of you. But I gotta thank our sponsors. We got this was made possible by Shopify Plus, Gorgeous, Task Husky, and Bold. And Gorgeous has a really generous offer. If you sign up, create an account today, you don't got to pay anything for it, and just connect it to your Shopify store, you get registered for a chance to win a year of their service. I only endorse the things I would use in my own business. Gorgeous is phenomenal customer support software. So if you're looking for a way to reduce those support tickets, solve them faster for your customers, definitely consider Gorgeous. It is a wonderful product. And after the Q&A panel, we will announce a winner. All right, quick attendee roll call here. Who's a merchant? We got our Shopify merchants. I see some familiar faces. I see Yvonne from Yvonne Estelle's in Park Ridge, Illinois. I like that store. Cesar Torres from LED Queens, which is a phenomenal store, very niche, sci-fi themed leggings, right? And here's the catch: leggings for men. I have a pair. I wear them on the weekends. They're too comfortable. Anyone else with an interesting Shopify store? I know we have a gentleman who is a firefighter in Rockford who roasts his own coffee. Where's Luke? There he is. Any other good ones? There's a man who sells just fasteners, like zip ties. There he is. No, all right, what do you sell? Esports apparel, so professional gaming. Oh, my kid Silas, you got to talk to that gentleman. He is selling pro sports gaming apparel. There you go. And who we got? Who's a marketer, an advanced marketer? No, you're not a marketer? All right. Oh, we said gentleman in the back is a marketer. And then developer designers. Any of those guys? Very good. You consider yourself a designer? I used to think of myself as a designer. I'm a recovered designer now. Yeah. I think so. I like to think so. Did anybody see those unemployable T-shirts in the back? Those are provided by Task Husky. I saw those. I love them. I immediately grabbed one for myself. So grab that stuff. Anyway, so the plan today, I think networking is the most valuable here, so I don't want to waste a ton of time talking at you, though clearly I enjoy it. We're going to do we got a 1 minute, 27-second promo from Gorgeous. I said, hey, you pay for this event, I'll happily show your 90-second reel. And Nick Disabato here from Draft will then speak to us about conversion rate optimization, and you can we'll do some Q&A, you can ask him. And then we're going to sit down, do a Q&A panel with 7-figure Shopify Plus merchant Beav Brodie from Tactical Baby Gear, and his business partner Alex will join us up here. And then we will have time left, and we will still be able to do some networking. Happy to let anybody pick my brain. So with that, let's run this Gorgeous promo, and then we'll hear what Nick has to say.
Your e-commerce business is growing. Customers are contacting you on multiple channels. Your support agents are stressed and overwhelmed. They're taking too long to respond and making mistakes. You're losing sales. You could hire more support agents, or you could use Gorgeous, the highest rated help desk for Shopify stores. Gorgeous combines your email, chat, phone, and social media messages into one streamlined view, making it a breeze for your support team to manage and respond to customers. Gorgeous is built into Shopify, so you can find tracking numbers, check delivery status, even edit a customer's order without leaving the app. Now, here's where the magic happens. You can set up automated responses to common questions like, where's my order? Gorgeous can answer simple questions like that, leaving your team to deal with more important inquiries and close more sales. Ultimately, Gorgeous helps you cut response time, scale your support, and generate more sales by providing outstanding customer support. Sign up for a free trial today at gorgeous.io.
All of that's true. The thing's fantastic, and it is top rated. So our speaker today on conversion rate optimization is none other than Nick Disabato. Nick has been instrumental in scaling and growing my business. Several years ago, I had someone I met online, a friend online, Kai Davis, said, hey, there's a guy looking for people who want to join a mastermind group about productized consulting. I said, that's a thing I'm trying to get into. That sounds good. And he said, oh, it's this. I said, who is it? He said, oh, it's Nick Disabato. I'll forward you the email. I said, wait, is this the same Nick Disabato? Because the small world, I had gone to middle school and high school with this gentleman, and then had a whole bunch of friends in common, and were friends then. So it all came back full circle. Yeah, 20 years later, the craziest thing. But he is as he said, a phenomenal designer. He's a conversion rate optimization specialist. He's written, he had the 19th successful Kickstarter project ever, was his book Cadence and Slang. It's about UX design, user experience design. And he recently published Value-Based Design, a wonderful book for designers. But he is my go-to resource whenever I have a question about conversion rate optimization, split testing, heat maps, best practices for getting websites to convert, for turning more visitors into customers. That's the guy I ask right here. Phenomenal that he's going to be speaking to us. And so I said, all right, give us the crash course. Teach us how you do what you do. Teach us about conversion rate optimization in 25 minutes. So he's going to talk to us, teach us all he can in the length of one Simpsons episode, and then get your questions ready. We will do a Q&A with Mr. Disabato.
Hi. Oh my God, that's loud. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, cool. I am Nick Disabato. I'm a designer and writer from Chicago. Thank you, Kurt, for having me here today. Thank you all for coming. This is an amazing, pretty packed house. And yes, the rumors are true. I've known Kurt since I was 12, and we're both in e-commerce, and I needed to put up this humiliating photo, but, Anyway, so we're here. I kind of do conversion rate optimization. I do just optimization in general. Conversion rate is one bit of it. AOV also matters. Average revenue per user also matters. But that's not really the whole story. It's not about A/B testing, right? When you think about conversion rate optimization, you think about split testing or A/B testing, and that's the cool, sexy bit of it, right? That's what everybody always wants to ask me about. Optimization is about creating a reliably profitable process for de-risking new design decisions and to get a net ROI out of it, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you about it. Wouldn't have a lot of wins from it, right? So the goal is to make more money off of optimization than you put into it. And when that happens, your maturity around optimization increases. You get some wins. You start understanding what the process means, understanding what it means for you and your store. It's kind of bespoke to the store. And as you gain more maturity with optimization, you are more comfortable putting more resources into it. It becomes lower risk to keep doing it. And it becomes a virtuous cycle, right? Makes your business even better at optimization. So in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about a process that I go through to optimize a lot of different online stores. Some are in the 7-figure range. Some are kind of in growth mode. Hopefully, you'll be able to get a consistently high ROI out of it no matter what size your store happens to be. So with that in mind, what do you do first? Everybody's like, oh, how do I get started with optimization? Well, you have to do all of the things that you have been putting off on preparing your store for testing, which is doing things like browser testing. Take a look at what browsers are converting below the norm. Take a look at what, it's like cutting in and out, isn't it? Take a look at what is faring well. Take a look at what is faring relatively poorly. Try and figure out why things are doing poorly on a given browser. Take a look at your mobile. Usually you get a graph like this, where your desktop is doing super well, your tablets are doing super worse, and your smartphones are doing horribly, right? Figure out what specific devices are performing better than others. And these are all, should I just ditch the mic? Or is this getting recorded? Rest on your chin, like this? Further up? Okay, cool. Sorry, guys. This is new. Figure out what pages are converting below the norm and what browsers are converting below the norm. None of this involves running a single A/B test. It involves understanding what browsers are doing poorly, what devices are doing poorly, what pages are doing poorly, and where you have opportunities to try and fix stuff. So you're going to be doing a lot of bug fixing. You're going to be doing a lot of cleanup. And why does this matter? Here's an example. So preparing your store for testing matters. A little while ago, I began working with a skincare makeup brand called Boom by Cindy Joseph. I went in and took a look at their Google Analytics and looked at their site speed graph and found out that their average page load time was 16.8 seconds. That's bad. I saw a couple wincing. Yeah, it's very bad, right? Everyone knows it's bad. If you don't know it's bad, here's a bunch of evidence proving that it's bad. Page load times map to worse conversion. If you want your conversion rate to go up pretty quickly, you can decrease your page load time. That decreases your bounce rate and increases your conversion rate. And that's because people don't get bored with your store or quit off or whatever have you. And I cut it by a third by doing a couple easy things. I compressed a bunch of images. I used the library Image Optim. If you guys don't use that already, you should. If you don't have the app CrushPics installed, crush.pics, you should get that installed. That does this basically automatically if you're lazy. Charges you money, not very much, but it's great. I removed a bunch of redundant JavaScript calls. They were calling jQuery 4 times. Calling jQuery 4 times is bad, right? Things that are very obvious and common sense. A couple of heavyweight image-based elements that were further down the page that weren't really, being looked at by customers or anything like that. And I ended up getting the page weight down to, I think the average at that point was 9.1 seconds, which still sucks, right? But it's better than 16.8. It's not stage and intervention level horrible. And I would have to cut meat beyond that to try and figure it out. And the consequence is that overnight the conversion rate went up by 9.1%, and I look like a wizard by doing a bunch of common sense stuff, right? Hooray, yes, thank you. So to recap, I took a look at the store's analytics for 5 minutes. I made a bunch of changes that they should have done that they didn't bother looking at, and made the store a lot of money into perpetuity. That is obviously great for a store that's been around for a really long time and makes a lot of money already to begin with. And I know it's very simplistic. Like, that's kind of a matter of luck. We found some low-hanging fruit. It worked out really well. But that doesn't change the spirit of the problem, does it? It doesn't change the fact that the problem is important for any business, which is paying attention to this sort of evidence is what's necessary for continued growth. If I hadn't found it, somebody would have, hopefully, somebody on the team or some other consultant. And your store is leaking some amount of revenue somewhere. Taking a look at these different things matters, right? And you can always grow despite this. You can launch a popular product. You can juice your ad spend. You can, get an influencer play, get lucky, but those are all risky. Fixing stuff is not risky. It is stuff that you already have on your store, and you can potentially make a lot of money from it. And so it's dangerous to rely on tactics that aren't doing the common sense thing and bug fixing your store. And that's the first thing that you have to do before you even start running any A/B tests. It's wildly unsexy, but it is profitable and it works. And you probably haven't done it lately. With that in mind, once you have all of that together, it's time to start optimizing what you actually have. So I'm not going to teach you how to run an A/B test because, frankly, there are a million guides out there for doing that, and there are a million A/B testing frameworks that teach you how to do that. And if you want, you can, read a bunch of different resources, right? What matters more than running an A/B test is coming up with test ideas that are reliably winning, right? It doesn't matter if you're running A/B tests and getting really good, clear, statistically significant results out of it if you end up with test ideas that don't actually perform well and you're just stabbing in the dark or you have a low success rate or whatever have you. You want to be able to move the needle for your store, right? And the best way that I've found to do that is by researching what customers do, how they behave, what motivates them, and responding to that and coming up with test ideas that are more likely to win as a result. I personally believe that no store owner really knows their customers until they start observing and asking them. You might be doing this by taking a look at customer support inquiries. You might be, emailing customers occasionally or asking for surveys, and those are good. They're research methods. It's great, but they're only small parts of a larger research process. I'm going to be talking about other research methods that you can potentially be turning into design decisions that are more likely to win. Research is how you come up with test ideas that work. So research has two forms. It's qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative research is more like, what is the narrative that drives your customers? Why did they come in today? What value are they getting out of your product? What are they saying about it? What are their hopes and dreams? How do you make them feel heard and understood? How do you craft a value proposition that actually resonates with them? That can involve talking to customers, finding interesting feedback, getting customer support inquiries, sitting in a customer's environment, watching them work, whatever it is. Those are all forms of qualitative research. And then if you're a data nerd like me, there's quantitative research, and that involves measuring stuff. It can involve looking at analytics. It can involve looking at heat maps or scroll maps. It can involve looking at surveys that involve averaging survey scores or whatever have you. And all of those involve quantitative, they involve data, but it's vitally important to have a 50-50 blend of both qualitative and of quantitative research methods in whatever testing program that you're doing. Because if you get only this, it's only going to help you craft your pitch. It's only going to help you reduce objections. It'll help you end up closing sales more effectively. This makes your store work a little bit better. This makes your conversion funnel work a little bit better. Makes it easier to actually take their credit card information, It makes it easier for them to go through and do this. So a few forms of quantitative research include heat maps. If you have an online store, you should be running heat and scroll maps. The tool that I use to do this is called Hotjar, HOTJAR.com. It's pretty cheap. I think it's $49 a month, something like that. And it basically tells you where people are interacting with the page, where they're not interacting with the page, what devices and platforms they are doing those things on. You get scroll maps for free as a result. This shows where people are scrolling, the percentage of customers that are actually scrolling down. And if you go, you'll see this. It's basically everyone is at the top, and then you get fewer and fewer people that are scrolling down as they continue to go down the page. And you'll find out that eventually nobody is going to be down here. And so what does that mean for your store, right? you end up, okay, well, cutting these elements, or you end up loading a lot of dead weight. You don't realize that people aren't interacting with this stuff. You make the page shorter. You rework the structure of the page. You rework the pitch on the page. You make it more interesting to read. Analytics. You should probably have Google Analytics installed on your Shopify store. If you do not, you're at the Shopify Plus meetup. I have still encountered $50 million Shopify stores that didn't have e-commerce tracking installed on Google Analytics. So make sure that your Google Analytics install is configured correctly. Here are two how-to guides that allow you to actually configure your Google Analytics correctly. We'll be giving you slides after the talk and everything. So if you signed up online, you'll be able to get this as a PDF, so you don't have to like frantically write everything down. But these are the guides that I go through. Prepare your store for Google Analytics, start configuring goals and events, and getting everything working properly there. Let's talk a little bit about qualitative research. Customer interviews. This involves literally getting people on the phone and talking to them for an hour about why they chose to come to your store, what kinds of products they purchased on it, and why they decided to go with you over competitors. You compensate them for your time, talk a little bit how they use stuff. This sounds terrifying to people who don't like getting on the phone. I have spent probably 8 years getting over my aversion to that. It is possible. Here are two very, very good books that provide solid resources for this. The former book up here costs $22, and it does more to teach you about interviewing users than like a 3-hour talk that I could possibly give. It is amazing. Usability tests. This sounds more like quantitative research, but you are actually having people complete example tasks on your store. You have them, purchase a product with a given credit card or place a transaction or browse for something, whatever have you. I use Try My UI. The 800-pound gorilla in this space is called usertesting.com, but it's more expensive and fancy. This is a little bit more like punk, and I like using it. Go there, buy 5 usability tests. They will do all the recruitment for you. They will screen record and turn on the microphone for you, and customers and participants will voice their inner monologue as they go through and try and complete tasks. You can see where people are getting tripped up, whether they're committing any errors, whether they have any specific objections. This costs money. It's like $350, I think, for 5 usability tests on Try My UI. If that does not make you back the $350, if you have never run usability testing on your store, that is one of the absolute best thing you can do to surface conversion-killing usability issues and actually move the needle for your business. It's an investment. You will probably make it back from the kind of insights that you're going to be getting from it. Post-purchase surveys. So on the thank you page or in the thank you email that you end up getting, it's usually a 1-question survey or very brief survey that asks people their feelings about their purchase today, or where their head was at, or what they were hoping to get out of the product, or whatever have you. And these sorts of things, you end up mining those responses. Sometimes people are like, where's my stuff at? Okay, great, send it along to the customer service department. Or I didn't like it. Okay, send it along to the customer service department. But you can still mine these for conversion insights and come up with interesting ideas for new tests. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. So once you have research together, you're going to be doing a blend of these methods, and the rate and cadence of that depends on what kind of tasks you're trying to be completing. I usually run heat maps about once a month. I usually run usability tests around once a quarter. I usually interview about once a quarter because it's a huge amount of time and effort, and I just feel wiped after doing it. And I look at analytics basically every day to 3 or 4 times a week. So once you have your research together, you need to find a way to translate it into revenue-generating design insights. Nobody ships research, It's not like I take my research PDF and put it on my store and then I make money off of it. You need to find a way to turn it into design decisions. And so in design parlance, that's called synthesis. And it sounds like fancy magic. It's not. It's a 3-step process. The first step is identify the problem. So perhaps you have a heat map that is showing that nobody is clicking on an add to cart button. Okay, well that's a problem. Why is nobody clicking on the add to cart button? Perhaps it's buried below the fold. And then so you go and look at scroll maps and try and figure that out. Either way, you have to understand that there is a problem. You want it to be solved in some capacity. And then the next step, find the reason. You don't know what the reason necessarily is. You're trying to guess on what the reason is, right? It's not, oh, they're definitely clicking on this or not clicking on this because it's below the fold. It's more, okay, well, we think it might be this case. So you might want to validate that by doing behavior recordings. You might want to do that by like taking a look at scroll maps or usability tests or whatever have you. Sometimes the answer here is performing more research and trying to keep digging into the actual motivations behind it. Sometimes it's obvious right off the bat, like the page takes 16 seconds to load, right? But either way, you need to try and find at least an informed guess as to what the reason might be. And that reason needs to be based in research. And then the next thing is improve the design. So whatever it happens to be, you should be making the design improvement rooted in what specifically addresses the problem and the reason behind it. So, if the add to cart button is, too far below the fold, come up with a design that moves it above the fold and make it so that it's more prominent, and then it might be easier to click. So, the reason that these work well in A/B tests is not necessarily because they make the button bigger or whatever have you. It's because they found out that there was potentially a problem, and then they tried to address it. And then the way in which you treat that, it's not just making the button more prominent, it's the way in which you make it more prominent and why. And that is what is more likely to actually work for you. So only then can you start actually A/B testing. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. Putting together an A/B test, once you have design decision together, you've synthesized it into something that says, okay, we're going to make the button bigger and above the fold. You need to create what's called a hypothesis. A hypothesis in A/B testing contains 3 components. The change, so we're making the button bigger and putting it above the fold. Whatever the actual metric is that you're trying to improve, so that could be average revenue per user, that could be average order value, that could be conversion rate, whatever it is. You need to have an actual specific one metric that you're going to be improving, because you need to be munging that through a bunch of statistics and figuring out whether or not to roll the decision out based on it. You can measure as many metrics as you want in a test. You can understand those for knock-on effects, but there has to be some sort of primary goal in mind to understand how much traffic you're going to be putting through. You'll understand why in a minute. And then the intended lift. So we made conversion rate go up by, say, 5%. And this matters. You need to be coming up with a specific intended lift so that you can calculate out your sample size. And I'll talk a little bit about why that's important and how it kind of becomes a give and take in a minute. But you can't run a test without a specific magnitude in mind before you run the test. So put all of those together, we are increasing the button size and putting it above the fold, and that will end up making conversion rate go up by 5%. That is what a hypothesis is. With that in mind, you need to calculate the required sample size for a test to run. Tests are kind of rooted in statistics, and so basically it's the sample size is contingent on what your goal is, what your existing conversion rate is for that goal, and what your intended lift is for the test. That sounds like a lot of complicated math. It is a lot of complicated math. Like in all complicated math problems, someone built a calculator for you to do this so you never have to think about the math behind it. And here's the link to it. It is the second one. Oh God. Boop, boop, boop. There we are. It's this guy. Oh, God. The worst. All right. It's this guy right here. Let's figure out how to use a remote, friends. So these links, I use this calculator every day in my job. It is super, super useful. And it basically allows you to calculate out your sample size. It's in the background of this post here. And it shows you exactly how much traffic that you need to be putting through per branch of your A/B test. So that includes your control. So you have to have something where you're not making a change, and then you do all of this, and it works out. So you have a sample size, you have a hypothesis, you've built out a change, you've launched a test. Great. You wait like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it takes to get to that sample size, and now you need to make sense of the results. As mentioned, testing is rooted in statistics. You're dealing with raw numbers. It's the people visiting your site. It's the people who are converting. It's the people who are converting on each different metric that you have. And then you're trying to prove the success of whether or not you should be rolling out that design decision to all customers. That's ultimately what A/B testing is. It's answering a question in the most informed way possible about whether or not we should ship the thing. So what most A/B testers use for this, if they're like old school statistician types, they use something called a chi-squared test. It's another link on Evan Miller. I forgot how to do chi-square tests in sophomore year of college, so I use this, and it basically helps me do it. It shows you, you put together how many people converted out of how many people visited your page for each branch of your variant, and then you determine how statistically significant it is, and if it comes in at 95% or higher, then it's effectively likely to end up moving the needle for you, which is great. There are a lot of A/B testing frameworks that come up with their own way of calculating out statistical significance to try and cut corners because they can guess, basically. They use what's called Bayesian statistics. I do the old school stuff because I tend to work with stores that are much larger, and so we have the luxury of actually operating with that. So that's basically it. That's how you run an A/B test. You make a change, you have a hypothesis, you put together a test, you make sure that it's based in research, and then you calculate out the impact of it. That sounds great, right? Kind of don't need research for this, people tell me sometimes. You can run tests whenever you want. You can continue building tests as your current test is running. You always keep a test running. You keep what works, discard what doesn't. You hopefully profit. So looking at how this works, research doesn't really appear to be essential. You could stab in the dark about it, right? This is the average success rate if you end up doing that, right? This is across every A/B testing framework, I believe, across all e-commerce stores. That's usually, I've seen 14% sometimes bandied around. This is actually not the lowest average that I've seen for everybody, but that's 1 in 8 that you're going to keep. I don't like that. I don't like that number at all because you're going to be wasting your time 7/8 of the time, and that's not so great, right? But these people all stabbed in the dark. They changed their call to action button from green to blue and hoped for the best, and that was it. If you end up researching stuff, this is our lifetime success rate at Draft. So we run 509 tests across, I think, 43 clients at this point. We have a 67% success rate, so that's just over 2/3. And this is the average lifetime boost we've had for all of our clients. And we know this because we look at everybody's Google Analytics and make sure that people are keeping the things that are working for them, right? And this just comes with doing basic research that any UX designer would normally do in a project. And we're applying that research process to the coming up with new A/B test ideas and hopefully profiting that way. Research informs test ideas. And as you keep testing, the goalposts are going to change, which means you need to keep researching. You're not just running usability tests once. You're not just interviewing your customers once. You're doing it every so often. You're coming up with a routine for it. And you're sticking to it, and you're holding yourself to it. Both research and testing should be proceeding into perpetuity. So if you want your store to get more successful at retaining more customers and maximizing your return on ad spend, you need to go out and start doing a lot of this. I know it's a lot of very high-level stuff. We've got a Q&A. I can talk about implementation after the talk and everything. But I assure that you can do it. I do this process with people all the time, and I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's also the most easy way to connect with customers and really understand what drives them, and that's wonderful. The end goal is to make sure that you have more of a culture of optimization and more CRO maturity in your organization. And every store is unique. It's hard to know where all of you specifically are at, but hopefully with some of this high-level advice, you'll be able to create a culture of optimization of your own. And I think that's all I've got. Sorry about the mic stuff earlier. I figured it out eventually. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right, I want to. Is this no? Yes.
Do you just want to take mine?
I want you to do Q&A, but I'm gonna be a mic runner.
Oh, you're gonna be a mic runner? Okay.
I'm gonna cut this into a podcast, actually, and I'm recording it.
Are you really?
I'd like to hear the questions. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. All right.
It's on.
Now is a very good time to think about all of your questions.
Testing.
Okay, I'll take that one, and then you. Okay, I'll repeat the questions back. Just throw your hands up if you have any questions. If you know everything about conversion rate optimization for your store, I'll be very surprised.
See, all the information that you gave, it was for Google Ads.
The question is, how do I bring people to the page? Is it with Google Ads or with other methods? It depends on the store. So usually it's a combination of Google Ads, Instagram, Facebook, like whatever it is. Sometimes it's re-engaging customers over email campaigns. I actually have one store that I work with who has been around for 25 years, and so a lot of their traffic is direct because their SEO is just so dominant that they've never had to worry about it, so they retain both me and an SEO consultant. But what we do is not necessarily like what the traffic is or what the ad spend is. It's like once you come into the store, how do you work with it? How easy it is to use the store. Where do you go? How do you browse? How do you check out? Is that as like frictionless and feasible as humanly possible across devices? I spend a lot of my time on mobile because people don't get it right. So yeah, does that answer your question? Cool.
So in Google Analytics, since it's broken down between desktop, tablet, and mobile, what would you consider good conversion rates in each of those categories?
So the question was, would I consider good conversion rates between desktop, mobile, and tablet? And that depends on the store. Like I've worked with some luxury brands that have low conversion rates because people come back frequently, or they're like more of a viral campaign or whatever have you. But I would say that there should be it would be a huge win if the discrepancy between mobile and desktop were like 40 to 50%. So if like you had for example, a 3% conversion rate on desktop and like a 2.25 conversion rate on mobile. Because what I end up finding when I go into my, like all the stores that I work with, it's one of the biggest insights that I found doing this job. I come in and your conversion rate on mobile is more like 1% or 1.25%. It's like default very, very bad. And people think that that is either because they like continue the purchase on desktop and so they convert artificially high on desktop and artificially low on mobile. I just think it's because we haven't really figured out how to have a good mobile experience yet. And a lot of places aren't mobile first in their design, and they should be. Most online stores should have mobile first design. They should not be vetting new design decisions on desktop. So I would say that like the discrepancy between mobile and desktop is what matters more than saying, 3%. Like that's not quite as useful, because I've seen as high as 5 for things that are like $10. They're like impulse purchases. But I've seen stuff lower. Basically, the higher the AOV, usually the lower the conversion rate.
So for your consulting business, how do you, for your website, do you optimize it the same way as an e-commerce?
Yeah, so the question is, I run a consultancy. Do I do the same sort of like CRO stuff on my own site? And the short answer is no. The long answer is yes for the books that I sell. So I also have books for sale over there if y'all buy the books. But like that is more of like an e-commerce thing, right? Like I have books and online courses, and I spend a lot of time teaching people about CRO. So that is much more ripe for A/B testing, especially like when I'm launching a new book and lots of traffic is coming in and lots of people are buying them, hopefully. So that makes sense. But in terms of like running A/B tests on getting leads for potential clients, most of my clients come from referral. So it's like email intros, and how do you A/B test for email intros? You don't. But also like the number of people who actually apply, maybe a couple dozen, 3 dozen a year. And that's how it should be. I spend a lot of time qualifying my leads and being very careful about who gets in the door. So a lot of people just load the page and be like, not for me, close tab, or not for me right now, close tab. And that's a win because I didn't waste your time. And I know who I want as a client. So I don't really know if running an optimization program for my own consultancy. Like, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't think it makes sense for me to do that. I'll optimize the heck out of my book sales, though. Yeah.
Where's the best place to start your A/B testing? Let's say I'm brand new to this.
Okay.
Do I start on a homepage, product detail page, or shopping cart?
So the question is like, if I had to pick a page to start optimization on, I'm going to answer your question, and then I'm going to unask your question and answer a different question. So if I had to pick one, if you put a gun to my head and made you answer your question, I would say product detail page, because that has the most like ripe conversion opportunities. It's a place where there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of people are like, that's the pitch. Like, people are considering the pitch. The homepage is like the brand, and the cart, like, people know where to find the checkout button. Like, don't use a sidebar cart. Just there it is.
So do we find the biggest fall off between the product detail page and the shopping cart?
Usually, yes. But with that in mind, I'm going to unask this question and say, like, I've never zoomed in on one page in my life. Like, I think more holistically about how the store is operating, and it's not a whole lot more effort to run heat maps across 3 different pages than it is to run them on one and start focusing on things there. Obviously, I'm biased because I like doing this, and so I just kind of sink my teeth into a lot of different parts of the store, and it's not, I don't think about it in terms of like, look at this page. I also don't think, I think it would be dangerous to take my answer earlier and say, oh, well, I'm going to look at the product page today and this week, and then next week we're going to move to the cart page and start making that good. Because then you get this like piecemeal kind of Franken design effect that doesn't end up, you kind of get like a local maximum out of your conversion rate, and that's not a good way to be thinking about the whole process, the whole interaction of how customers are working with your store. So, in the back.
Hi, my name is Rishabh. I have a follow-up question on the lady.
Sure.
So I run a Shopify app which creates a mobile app for your e-commerce store.
Okay.
For a Shopify store. So from what you said, I understand you have lower conversion rate on mobile device as compared to desktop.
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to a lot of merchants, and they said they have more traffic on mobile device as compared to desktop.
Yes.
So have you seen in your experience a case where they have more conversion rate if they have a mobile app for their e-commerce store?
Are you talking like a iOS app that you install from the App
iOS,
Store?
Android, yeah.
The question is, do I typically see higher conversion rates for stores that have a native iOS or Android app? Probably. I've not encountered that terribly frequently because that tends to be usually only the purview of like enterprise type clients. And it depends also heavily on what kind of app they have. You could have a busted app and still have it, perform very poorly. I would say, generally speaking, it probably contributes to a certain kind of halo effect with the brand. If you can afford an iOS app, you must be a cool brand, right? But most of my work is spent on the web, and so I have not personally seen like a ton of effects from that. I hope that helps answer a little bit. I haven't answered any questions over here. You guys are all, hi. 2 more? Okay.
Besides consulting, do you offer services to actually do the test?
Yeah. So the question is, in addition to the like consulting, do I provide a service that like actually creates and runs the test? And so yes, I'll talk about Draft a little bit. So we have a like one-off page site teardown where basically I'll just go through and come up with like a huge video report where I go through all your store and run heat maps and do GA and basically do what I already just said, right? And that then I give you this report and then I run off and that's it. You get a 6-month test plan and a lot of actionable insights. And I think the average conversion rate bump I've gotten from stores is something like 15% from that. Like, it's good. It does really well. But then the thing that like I'm probably most known for is that I go in and do all of this for you. So I run the framework, do the statistical analysis, manage prioritization. I feel like I'm mostly a project manager in those situations because prioritizing A/B tests could be a whole other 3-hour talk, figuring out what is most likely to move the needle, what is most technically feasible, that sort of stuff, right? But then there's also like, who is developing this? Who is connecting with it? I'm a designer by trade, so a large part of it is like I'll be working with another agency, like say EtherCycle, your best friends, and then they'll build out like more ambitious prototypes or stuff like that, and I'll be dictating like UX and stuff like that. So it's not even Like I'm not just being somebody who like wings reports over to the CEO and tells them what to do. I'm like actually sitting down and doing design and coming up with prototypes and getting my hands dirty, at least on the design end of it. So the seam around that is fuzzy. Like sometimes I just like either there's a lot of like code debt or like developers are, you know, for some reason not fully resourced that week or whatever, so I hand other stuff off to them. But like, you know, most of the time I'm working on production. I'm actually creating stuff and putting my consultant hat on as I'm doing that the whole time. So, yeah. One last question. Make it good. Is there anything behind the poll? Far back.
How do you make decisions when you review the scroll map? Let's say, you know, as part of like removing stuff or changing the contents.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, how do I make decisions as I'm looking at a scroll map? Kurt actually asked me this exact same question when we were out for dinner like a month ago. There are two major things I'm looking for at the very beginning that I just zoom in on, and one of them is like big drop-off points. So you saw that like huge rainbow roll there. Like sometimes it just goes from like red to yellow like immediately, and it just skips orange. That means you're already losing like 25% of your customers, right? So if there's like a major drop-off point, I want to know why. I don't want to know what exists at that drop-off point that could potentially be. This is cutting on enough. What exists at that drop-off point that could potentially be losing customers, right? And if that's a good or a bad thing, it could be, oh, I'm convinced, I'm buying the thing, or and so I'm connecting it to the heat map at the same time, or it could be, I'm bored, I just closed the tab. Not so good, right? The second thing I'm looking at is the point at which maybe like fewer than 25% of customers are even looking at the page anymore. And this is the part that horrifies online store owners because it's sometimes like above the reviews. It's sometimes like above the nice fancy pants image gallery you put in. And that's like a third of your page load. So basically, if only a quarter of your customers are looking at the thing, either they got confused or they got bored or they already made their decision, right? And if you are loading anything below that point, it's probably dead weight on the page. Which, what did I say earlier about reducing page weight? Try and reduce page weight. So if you have a gigantic image gallery at the bottom of the page, then nobody's going to be looking at it. That's horrible. So you should be getting rid of it. Those are the two biggest things that I look at. And then sometimes like I'm trying to corroborate or correlate it with heat maps as well. But and it gets more nuanced than that. I could go through a whole thing, but those are like the two things. And you'll get a lot of insight out of just paying attention to those two things. So.
My question to you is, do you have a newsletter, and can I subscribe to it?
I absolutely have a newsletter. You can go to draft.nu or draft.nu/letters, and you can subscribe to it. All of you can subscribe to it. I don't discriminate. My most popular newsletter now is actually the one that announced the book. But for about 5 years, it was 1,600 words about a sandwich I ate once. I'm not kidding. It was a really good sandwich, fam. It was really good.
He's got to balance out this academia data stuff with just stories about sandwiches.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wrote about a Traffle coffee rig. Yeah. Anyway, that's my newsletter. It's mostly valuable for most people. Cool. Well, thank you again. I think Beav is up next. So, yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Mr. Beav Brodie to the front. And his sidekick, Alex. Is there a merchant here from trendsverified.com? No? Oh, they're who won the gorgeous giveaway. So I will have to email them. Cool. So we've got here Mr. Beav Brodie from Tactical Baby Gear, Alex. And yeah. That's his site. That's their real live Shopify site up there. It's got that really, really striking image. And this tagline that you like. You see it, you just got to know more. Ditch the girly diaper bag. That's great. So I've got some questions that people sent in. I want to do a few of those, and then I will turn it over to the audience. But let's start with Mr. Brodie. Tell us about Tactical Baby Gear. What the heck's going on here?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate all of you coming out. So Tactical Baby Gear is just that. No, I'm just kidding. We design and manufacture military-style diaper bags for dads. Check. Whoa. So we do diaper bags for dads because, as I was having a second girl, I realized I was going to have to carry the purple bag again, and I didn't want to do that. So we created this about 6 years ago. I don't know what else. How did I get started? All right, so I was just starting to touch on that. So I was having a second girl, and I realized I didn't want to carry the purple bag again. At the time, I was building custom cars, and I did some searching online trying to find my own bag, and I used my skills with cars and doing upholstery and stuff like that to make my own. And I realized at that time, there's no way in the world I'm the only dude out there that doesn't want to carry a girly diaper bag. So I had this kind of epiphany of like, you know what, I'll create this brand around it, and everyone else loved it too. So it was kind of it was a side hustle for about a year and a half, 2 years, at least 2 years. And then we started putting a lot more full-time energy into it as I brought Alex on board, and we partnered up, and we put a ton of energy into it until I was able to stop working on cars and start focusing more on this on a full-time basis. And we've seen a lot of exponential growth since then. So we started in 2013.
And what year did you bring Alex on? All right, so I'm going to trade mics with you. You're going to use this one.
I brought this one's on. You might want to bring the volume up a little bit. Alex came on 2015.
Okay. All right, let me see what questions I got here. Here's a good one. So you do a ton of stuff with social media, like blows me away. My wife got the Beav bump, right? He shared, how many followers do you have on Instagram?
Just under 100,000 on Instagram and 230,000 on Facebook.
Yeah, so just having like one 10-second story from him for 24 hours essentially announced her store to the world because they had a bit of an overlapping audience. So there's power in that. So for her, you were her first influencer. I've got Howard Barsky from Packrat Inc. asks, do you use influencer marketing?
Yeah, we use a bunch of it.
So what size, and then his follow-up, well, give me your feeling on that, but his follow-up was, what size influencers do you target, and what is your typical ROI?
We'll use something that works. Influencers is an interesting thing to that people can that is debatable, and it's really hard to connect the dots a lot of times to influencer and revenue, unless you're doing some things that are like really tracking it. But that tends to get spammy when they're promoting coupon codes and this and that, and they kind of lose their own personal brand by constantly pushing something versus something that's more organic. So we use influencers on a big scale, 500,000 followers, 300,000 followers. But what's really interesting about our business model and the way that we promote our customers posting pictures, we essentially have tons and tons and tons of micro-influencers posting their picture of their product and tagging us, which we then repost, which then prompts people to keep posting pictures because they get a warm, fuzzy feeling when their picture gets reposted. So not only do we have those large influencers, but we've got our own customers acting as micro-influencers for us. Which is invaluable because that just gives you an immense amount of social proof, which we all know is extremely important in that world, because that then kind of translates into trust from other customers or people that see it, that okay, this person got their product, they actually love their product, they're saying it's a great product. It's like it's a referral, a word of mouth referral that you can't track the data on always.
He was asking the ROI. What's the typical ROI of working with an influencer?
You can't track. It's so hard to track. We don't track it in any way particularly. At times. Yeah, there's times when we provide coupon codes, but nothing. We try very hard to not push coupon codes because we don't want to come across as a spammy type of brand with that influencer. We don't want to put a bad taste. Now, there's times when we're using a Mother's Day sale. Like, we'll have our influencers pushing that for us, but it's not use my coupon code influencer 123 to get something off. It's more of just they're gonna use it in their day-to-day organic content and tag us in it, or something along those lines.
Have you tried to split test it and try to remove some coupon codes? For example, have one influencer to post a coupon code for like 20% off, and then post another one with no coupon.
No, we've done that with YouTubers, but they screw it up every time. Honestly, how do they screw it up? They either don't put the code in the URL correctly into YouTube, because with YouTube you have to put https:// and they'll just put tacticalbabygear.com/ because we'll use the discount code link that automatically applies the coupon code in the shopping cart, and they screw it up every time. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So you've got how many products do you have?
We've got 8. I know. We've got 8 core products in various colorways, and then we've got dozens of other ancillary patches and stuff like that. Do you have anything else on that? That's about right. Okay. We don't have a huge product line. We don't have a massive catalog of products.
And you're the man. You're the guy doing the development.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could sew from doing car upholstery, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, because I visited your office and you were showing me stuff that you're like, this is the sewing machine. You're the sewing machine in the front, and you were like just prototyping stuff. I love people who work with their hands. It's very cool. Andy Bedell from Keysmart, who spoke at the last event and is been on the show, he asks.
Is he here?
No, I'm shocked that Mr. Bedell is absent.
We should beat him up.
We should. Let's go find him. He asks, how do you execute on new product development?
It starts with an idea and where we identify a need in the market for something, and can we put our spin on it? Can we put the Tactical Baby Gear DNA on a baby product that's going to solve a problem in the marketplace? I think is really where that starts. Is that kind of identifying the need and the problem?
And I think that stems from. So I do all the operations for Tactical Baby Gear. Beav is the the brand, the DNA, the marketing, and he's day in and day out actively on Instagram, Facebook, interacting with the customer. And I think when you get to that level of communicating directly with the consumer, you can start to pick up on the trends. And so thankfully, Beav has a knack for just seeing the trends of what customers are doing, or just with the the spaces, whether it's dads or taking shoe culture, for example, then applying that to what we can do, our spin on it with our DNA. So I guess it would start with just being just on the ground, boots on the ground, trying to figure out what is moving, like the people that are in your space. So actively being on Instagram, communicating with people in your community, and then from there, how do you apply it to your niche? Obviously, we do men's diaper bags. So then, is there colorways that are you see trends on that people are posting on? Then how do you jump on that?
There was a rest of that question? Just how do we start with product development? Was there anything else to that question?
Did you do anything to validate it?
Usually, we'll sample it, we'll prototype it, and then we'll use it and test it ourselves and see what we think about it.
Tease it.
Potentially tease it a little bit, and then we'll do a big launch. And we've had products that didn't do so well, that we still don't know why they haven't. We're like, I'm like, this product should have killed it, and it didn't. But that's the validation there. The market will tell you.
I'll do one more of these, and then we'll start looking for audience questions. Joe Begain from Arlington Brands, which is chicagobrickoven.com. Super cool if you're into wood-fired pizza. He asks, what are your top 3 growth initiatives for 2019?
I'll let Alex kind of... So here, realistic top growth initiatives for 2019 is we'll spend more money on advertising, which then will translate into how Alex is going to work out how we buy inventory. But realistically, it's more content, more marketing, being on more platforms, and just literally trying to be everywhere that everyone else is paying attention. So whether that's more blog posts, we're doing the podcast now for Tactical Baby Gear as well as my own stuff. We're doing, more funny videos and skits, more pictures, more influencers, more YouTube, more everything, and then putting money behind it. That's like the top number one initiative, I'd say. I don't know about 2 and 3 though. That's where this guy comes in.
Lower cost as best you can, but then reinvest. So right now, you got to be everywhere all the time. Your customers talk to you on every platform. They want to know where their order is through a DM on Instagram. And so, how can you continue to deliver such an amazing user experience by trying to be everywhere when you're a startup? It's you just spend hours, having to communicate on every platform. You try to do everything. You got to do a Twitter post, then you got to do an Instagram post, and then you're still trying to manage a business. You're trying to buy inventory. You're trying to answer a customer. You got to make sure your product gets out the door. So, I guess for us, since we've been able to lay a decent foundation, we use 3PLs to just ship our product because they know how to ship. I know how to tape a box. I've done it, but they're experts at it. So what are you good at, and then maximize, double down on what you're good at. He's good at creating content. So how do we double down on that to get our brand awareness out there? So I would say right now it's, Facebook's getting more expensive. You got to pay to play, but it's still cheap relative. So double down on getting your brand out there so you have customers to communicate with. But otherwise, it's just continually trying to optimize. And for me, from an operations standpoint, it's how do we lower costs? How do we use negotiating with buying more volume to get lower prices, so I don't just put that in my pocket, but can reinvest that into marketing. Coming up with automation through emails for email campaigns using we use Klaviyo for that, but that's not a plug. I don't, but we just do that just for the analytics. So it's just doubling down on how do you get your message out there, so you have brand power when the economy eventually kind of collapses or it becomes more expensive to get in touch with people. But that's kind of our initiatives right now.
A lot of that too. So that's, I think, a big number 2 for sure. Number 3 would be a customer experience. How can we streamline the process with conversion rate optimization and making sure that there's less friction to buy, increasing conversion rates, getting the product to the customer faster, all those kinds of things that play into just a better user experience, which then turns into word of mouth and, back to customer service and all that stuff. So user experience would probably be a number 3. We manufacture it, and we have it in fulfillment centers around the country. So as the order comes to us, it gets forwarded to the fulfillment center, and then they ship it, they fulfill it for us based on geographic location where the order's going, so that they get it as fast as possible for the least amount of money.
So you don't manufacture yourself, right? You used to, but now you're moving on and you have it.
Well, we control the manufacturing. It's our product, our brand, our design, but we do manufacturing through other factories at that volume, yeah.
But are you actually shipping them out, to yourself? Or?
No, they're coming from other warehouses. Yeah.
Yeah. So our factories will ship it in, to the fulfillment centers based on, the need that we've discovered on, we ship, 60% to the East Coast, 40% to the West Coast. So we'll split our inventory accordingly, and then let the professionals who ship, and then, we'll worry about how do we drive people to the site to be able to get the orders to then ship out.
What fulfillment center do you guys use? Like Shippo?
We currently use a company called IFS 360. I think the biggest thing from an operational standpoint is find a fulfillment center that truly understands your product and that you can minimize the least amount of frictions for your customer service side, because everyone expects the Amazon experience. So even though you only do 6 figures, they expect you to be a $1 trillion company, and I need tracking tomorrow, but I haven't placed the order yet. It's I need to change this color. It didn't arrive on time. I won't expect free shipping. It's you gotta play the Amazon card even though you're not a $1 trillion company. So, can you partner with a fulfillment center that understands your needs? Some companies do not ship apparel well, so don't go. If they're good at shipping vitamins, then maybe you need to vet them and not use that company, because you have a lot of change orders. You got different sizes. If they all look the same, the last thing you want from a customer experience is they get small and they order a medium. So I would say from 3PL, you just need to find the right partner in the industry that you're in, and then create a really good working relationship, because inevitably the customers are going to need changes. Can they facilitate that for you to help you get back to what you do best, which maybe is developing a really cool, in our case, coming up with the next product, as opposed to, why did my order not ship out on time?
How did you find the factories to manufacture? You manufacture in the United States, and how did it evolve from the beginning when you first started to where you are now?
I found manufacturing by calling him.
So I was doing manufacturing overseas about 12 years ago. I invented a disposable liquor flask. So imagine an empty Capri Sun with a screw top. I was in college, so yes, I was trying to smuggle booze everywhere I could go. But back in the day, that's right before Alibaba really started, taking off. I was very fortunate to meet a gentleman I took the initiative and I just flew over there to go to a trade show. And I met a trading company out of Hong Kong who specialized in drinkware. So I was looking for someone in the space that I was in, and just vetted them, built really good rapport. And from there, I trusted them to go manufacture my product. I knew I'd be giving up margin, but I also, again, kind of going back to why I use a 3PL, I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Vietnamese, and so if you're manufacturing overseas, it was how do we find someone that already has the quality controls in place, and then when you're passionate about your product, you'll have the nuances to add to your quality control, but use the experts. So I got really lucky by meeting a really good trading company, and from there let them source out 5 different factories, do the quality, actually inspect the facilities, and found a really good partnership on it that didn't try to cut corners, and then I just doubled down on it. Nowadays, so to that end, you can easily find stuff on Alibaba. I would caution, if you have the means and ways to go over there, go, because everyone claims they're a factory owner. I've literally gone to a hotel and been picked up 5 different times on the same exact day and gone to the same factory, all saying that they're the factory owner. And I go through the same pitch, and then at the end of the day, I'll keep waving to the same ladies at the front desk. So if you have the means to try to go over there and visit in person, it'll cut out a lot of the BS. Otherwise, if you can try to if you're not an expert in manufacturing, I would try to find a trading company that is a manufacturer and build that into your margins.
Yeah, whether that's U.S. based or overseas or whatever.
Gentleman in the back, Fletcher.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Did you guys used to ship in-house and then move over to a 3PL?
Did you guys hear that? Did we used to ship in-house and then move to the 3PL? And we did in the early days when I was like a side hustle grind for me. I was like shipping out of my living room, my garage, out of my car shop, like was shipping out of everywhere. And then as we started taking it more serious and we had more and more inventory, because the other thing is we didn't have a ton of inventory then, so it wasn't really a big deal. And then as we started manufacturing in bulk, it was like, all right, where are we going to put all this stuff? And then, with Alex's experience in doing some of that stuff before, because I didn't know. I knew how to build a custom car. I knew cars. I didn't know manufacturing. I didn't know retail. I didn't know e-commerce. And that was still, e-commerce was pretty young even 6 years ago. And a lot of people were still trying to figure it out. So we learned that, together amongst many other things. But we transitioned into it slowly and just kind of committed to it and then never turned back away from it, because it's, for us, it just automates that big piece of it and letting the experts do it.
I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is, did I order enough Uline boxes today? Because I got, it's Black Friday and you ran out of boxes. Like, in my opinion, make that someone else's problem. Outsource what you can if you can, but then view it like a partnership. We very much view anyone that we're going to deal with as employees, even though they're we're not paying them directly through like a W-2. How do we take care of them? And because at the end of the day, especially with e-commerce, if you don't deliver on the product that the customer ordered, you're not going to be in business that long.
1-star review.
How much percentage do you give out as a commission to the manufacturers?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I can speculate, but they don't tell us how much margins they make.
Yeah, I guess from that end, it's like I know what I pay, and can I make the margins work? And I guess to that end, I would be careful on pricing your product too low or getting into those discounts from that. If a lot of startups, or when I was doing it too, it's like, oh, I bought this for $5 and I sold it for 10. I made a ton of money. Well, then you get taxes. I mean, obviously, economic nexus is now a thing. If you don't want to get involved now, just wait till California comes after you for not paying sales tax for the next 3 years. Did you factor that in from an administrative side? People want returns. People want free shipping. So
got to market it.
Yeah. So I never really looked at it from like how much are they making off me, as much as is it a quality product at a price that I want to buy, that I want to put my name and brand behind and feel comfortable offering everything that everyone wants, using, from free shipping to lifetime guarantee. And is there enough margin in it for marketing, and does that make sense? And if the price didn't make sense, it could be the best, best thing since sliced bread, but I didn't pursue it. So I never looked at it from, hey, you make $15. I don't care if someone makes 100% off me if I can make my 100%.
Right. And to that end, most trading companies aren't making like a killing off of each one of your products, because they're making it up for it in volume. So, and I'm throwing a number out there. They might be marking it up, say 15% or something roughly.
Yeah.
So you said you had a product idea and you built it yourself. How did you go about in terms of starting your brand before the top-notch logistics, before working with the amazing company EtherCycle and all that in the very beginning, the struggles, and how do you face them?
So the question was how I started the brand before we started really doing some of the foundational stuff and all that. Instagram was the backbone of how it all started. I was lucky enough to be on Instagram when it first started, and when I started building custom cars, I gained a good following and a good network of people, and I met a lot of people over 10 years, and I was able to leverage some of those people that I knew when I launched this company, because there's a lot of crossover in guys that like cars and guys that like cool gear, and most of them are at an age that they're having kids. So I got very fortunate in that regard. So it was very easy for me to reach out to all my car buddies that had 500,000 followers, 30,000 followers, all these guys, and be like, hey, will you give me a shout out? We're homies. We've done a lot of stuff together. And so that really kickstarted it. But this entire thing, literally the entire thing was built on Instagram. Go ahead, yeah.
So you said that you had plenty of products that you created or manufactured that failed, but that you thought should have succeeded. How would you advise beginners in terms of want to start out? Because some say that to get in the e-commerce area, you should just try drop shipping, how it works. Drop shipping from China, like the good old-fashioned way to get into that before actually going and testing and creating your own product and wasting all that time and money. How would you, like your personal opinion?
I'm not a fan of drop ship style, like the typical drop ship, business style that like selling the exact same product everyone else is selling, because it's really hard. There's no margins in it. It's really hard to make money on that. My advice would be to pursue selling something that you're super passionate about, because then all the failures don't matter. To be completely honest, like none of it's you're gonna look at that and say, all right, I gotta figure this out. I'm gonna do it again. I would figure it out just on a small scale. Take baby steps. You're not gonna launch an overnight $1 million store tomorrow. I mean, it'll take you years to get there. And I would start doing something that you're really passionate about instead of like a drop ship brand. If you're just doing it to chase money, it's not gonna work in the long term, anyways.
And you are wise. Yeah. All right, you pick another one.
It's honest. It's true. She had a question right here a few minutes ago.
So since you guys have military-inspired product, are you guys ex-military?
Nope.
Nope. So what you got you into the military style? It looks like to me like a bug out bag.
Yeah, and it's inspired by all the military gear and all that stuff. So I was a real hardcore fan into the tactical community. I've had family and friends that were in the military, law enforcement, stuff like that. I didn't go down that road, but we certainly do appreciate it. We're a very patriotic company. We support the military. We offer military coupon codes and things of that nature, and we support a lot of military organizations. So we give back to that community a lot. They are the community that supports us. They're a huge part of our demographic. So we do what we can to obviously give back to them as well.
And if you want to offer like military discounts, first responders, Shopify does have back-end apps that go through like a third-party service to E-Verify. If you want to offer those kind of a discounts.
Yeah, it'll give them a unique coupon code.
Oh gosh. We installed it like 6 years ago.
It used to be called Military ID. Now it's
Oh gosh.
Get back to you.
Yeah, but from like a the whole was like tactical is practical.
ID services.
Yes. Tactical is practical. So taking it. Building a brand that just wanted to make dads enthusiastic about being a parent, because we don't believe that the woman, in this, should be the mother should be the only one involved in the child rearing process. It's a 50-50. So when you're kind of in the grind and, especially if you're in law enforcement or in the military, you need your gear to stand up to whatever situation you're in. So, the way Beav has obviously explained it to me, and then we've developed it since is, when you're in the thick of it with a kid, you got a screaming kid, you need access to stuff. You want it to reliably work. So what better than, inspired by the gear that, people that are running, around mountains getting shot at, like, what do they use? I mean, obviously you're not getting, that serious, obviously, changing diapers, though it might feel like it when you're getting screamed at and everyone's looking at you.
We do have bulletproof panels for the bags though, just in case.
But anyway, so that's really kind of, it's, spoke to obviously the DNA, the personality of Beav, and other people certainly relate to it. But, how do we just make practical stuff that works for parents? And this is kind of what we've settled on.
Yeah, since your product is geared towards men, when you do Facebook and Instagram advertising, do you target men or is it just...
The question was, if since our product is geared towards men, do we market directly towards men? Typically, yes. But what's really interesting is over the years we found out how much women love it too, because what they've all expressed is how their husband gets a bag and then all of a sudden they're stealing it, they're using it. It's far more practical. It's got more pockets. It's got more organization, and they end up buying one for themselves. So and then that's translated into women buying it for men. Men is still our core end user, but now we have the ratio is really climbing with more and more women purchasing it for themselves, but also for a gift. So we're having to market to both men and women now quite a bit.
How do you handle your customer service at scale, specifically with customers that don't want to put in their credit card and want to call you on the phone to place an order?
We have somebody to answer the phone.
Yeah, it's. I guess it just comes down to that. At the end of the day, I used to hate when the phone rang, and then I was kind of like, why am I hating people wanting to call and give me money? And then you just a different mind shift of there's still people that don't want to put it online. So, thankfully it's really easy with Shopify, obviously, to just manually key in an order on the back end, but just answer the phone and talk. Obviously, from at scale, we've done things to try to automate to make sure that the manpower that we need from how many customer service representatives that we have, are there things that we're doing on the front end to eliminate the need for people to ask questions, follow up, where's my tracking? So, we do a lot of, on all of our product pages, we do, videos that explain the product. We try to really go in detail, and we put a lot of focus and energy on the photos we take. So can we answer as many questions up front to alleviate a lot of the questions that we might normally get? And then, it's just like researching for, optimization. Like you just, what are the questions you're getting, and then how can you turn that into problem solving on the front end so you're more offensive than defensive, which thankfully we've got lucky by answering a lot of those questions, which now has reduced the amount of tickets that we get. So when someone does call in, I don't have to have 4 extra people just to be able to at scale answer the phone to take phone orders. So I guess I've solved it at scaling by eliminating a lot of problems that customers normally ask.
And then hiring Kurt to do weird, funky, custom stuff on the website for other stuff.
Wi-Fi, I'd show you an example of a customer service problem solved with design, but I don't. Other questions? Anybody? No? Let's wrap it up.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. If you want to be notified about the next one, sign up for my newsletter. I left, there's a sheet of paper up there with some email addresses on it. Grab a pen, put your email on there, or sign up at kurtelster.com. I will shoot you an email when we're doing the next one. And yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you to our sponsors. Task Husky, who's here, grab one of their great shirts out of the back. Shopify Plus, gorgeous, bold. Thank you. Good night.